The Raiders did not land Matt Stafford as their franchise quarterback, so who's next? We'll talk about that plus the scouting combine on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for March 3rd, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show where you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out on the YouTube page, we definitely appreciate both. The show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support, Raider Nation, checking in each and every day in a very important offseason for the Raiders moving forward with GM John Spytek as in charge, and, of course, Pete Carroll as the head coach. Another chapter in Raiders football history. So a very important season. We do appreciate you being part of the show. We shout out my man Ari, who does a great job behind the scenes, making sure the YouTube page looks good and sounds good each and every day. You can check him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, you can do that as well. 707-654-4693. And we will get back to your calls and texts after having a week away as we were in Indianapolis at the Scouting Combine. No, we're not back in Studio Q. We're actually in Portland. I'm getting excited about being at Little Q's senior night for Portland State. That's going to be a lot of fun seeing this young man grow up and chase his basketball dreams and to be at the point where he's at so he can have senior night. Very excited about that. So that's where I'm at now, Indianapolis to Portland. But it doesn't matter where we're at. We still make the show go each and every day. So your calls and texts will come up in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll talk about what's next. No Matt Stafford. So who should be in line next? What do the Raiders need to do to attack and really solidify that quarterback position? We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1 is just news and notes, really recapping what happened at the Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. We'll get right to that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It's just as simple as that. So, as we know, we found out on Friday that the Raiders were going to miss out on Matt Stafford. He got in a closed-door meeting with Sean McVay and the rest of the Rams, and, well, they decided that they were going to, figure it out. They were going to work on a contract, get it done, and he was going to remain the quarterback of the Rams, which makes all the sense in the world. They're better together than they are separate. And as much as, he would be a nice piece as far as this Raiders team goes, a nice veteran quarterback at that spot, he was a short-term fix at best. Regardless of how you looked at it, no matter what you thought about it, Matt Stafford wasn't going to help the Raiders win the Super Bowl in 2025, that they weren't going to be hoisting the Lombardi, right? This is a process that they've got to go through. Yeah, he could have gave some really good competitive quarterback play, but he wasn't the guy that was going to put them in the Super Bowl. And on top of that, what was he going to do for the long-term effect? So I got to give a lot of props to the Raiders front office. Whatever the Rams were asking for, the Raiders didn't budge on. I was told they were asking for a 1. The Raiders said no. I was told that they were asking for a 2. The Raiders said no. So I think they were more in line with that third-round pick that they got for Devontae Adams and maybe one next year as well. And the Rams said no, they were better off with Matt Stafford than without him. And so that's cool. That's fine. I could appreciate the fact that the Raiders front office was being very aggressive, and they've been very aggressive. That's what we've learned so far with John Spytek and Pete Carroll and company in charge. A lot, obviously, Tom Brady has a lot to say with it as well. They're being very aggressive. They're not leaving any stone unturned, and that's something that I can appreciate. At least whatever they're doing, they're trying to make sure that this team is exploring all options, and they've done that from the jump, even before Pete Carroll was named the head coach, even in the pursuit of Ben Johnson. Very aggressive. He was the hottest name out there. Okay, well, why can't the Raiders be at the table? Why can't the Raiders have a conversation with them? Oh, he doesn't want to talk to the Raiders? Yeah, he does. Tom Brady's going to make the call, and he's going to want to talk to the Raiders. So I know a lot of Raider fans, and I saw a lot on social media, had a lot of people hit me up on Twitter. Oh, the Raiders got used again. The Raiders were used for leverage, this, that, and the other. It's really not the case. The Raiders are throwing their name into every hat, and people are listening. Teams are listening. Coaches are listening. Potential quarterbacks listening. That's the good thing. They are at least in the conversation where before they weren't. And that is really the Tom Brady effect. What I learned from the scouting combine in Indianapolis all week long is that Tom Brady has such a big name and he has such a big thumbprint on everything that the Raiders are doing. The team has a lot of respect around the league. They can appreciate, and when I say they, like the national media and people that are talking to other teams and talking to other decision decision makers are saying that they can appreciate the fact that Mark Davis has said, you know what I don't know, which he's been saying forever, and I'm going to go ahead and turn everything over to football people, and Tom Brady's going to have a lot to do with it. And now John Spytek, Pete Carroll, who obviously has got some skins on the wall. These are the guys in charge of putting this team together. So they missed out on Matt Stafford. Okay, that's fine. The Raiders are going to host quarterbacks Cam Ward and Will Howard for top 30 visits following the combine. So those are some interviews that you'll hear about when they do happen at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. So again, talking to every single quarterback that is out there. Also coming out of the Scouting Combine in Indianapolis this past week, Trayvon Merrick and Nate Hobbs, two guys in the Raiders secondary. Trayvon the safety and Nate Hobbs the slot corner. Definitely are going to have interest from teams as they are free agents. Deshaun Reed tweeted out from The Athletic. In addition to safety Trayvon Merrick, other teams across the NFL have expressed significant interest in cornerback Nate Hobbs and also linebacker Robert Spillane. There are three of the several Raider defensive starters that are set to become unrestricted free agents in March. So when the new league year opens, again, the two guys in the secondary that I mentioned, Trayvon Merrick and Nate Hobbs, are going to have multiple teams that are going to be pursuing them to sign as free agents. And Robert Spillane has also built his name up. So he's a guy that the Raiders could end up without in 2025. And they have a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball that are unrestricted free agents. So they've got to figure out how to sign them, who they want back, who they don't. They started things off when they brought back Isaiah Palamau. I think that says a lot about Isaiah. I'll tell you, and I've said this multiple times, that when I talked to Trayvon Merrick in the Raiders locker room following Week 18's game, it didn't really sound like he was a big fan of coming back. It sounded like he was kind of like ho-hum on coming back, not really like that's exactly what he wanted to do. And I'll be honest, I don't know what the teams are going to be talking about when it comes to Nate Hobbs and his salary demands or what he's looking for, but I think his availability is going to play a major role. I think Nate Hobbs would be a perfect guy in a Pete Carroll-led team, just knowing Pete Carroll's, his attitude, his style, what they did at the Legion of Boom there in Seattle. I think Nate Hobbs would fit that perfectly. I just don't know what they think, how much they value him when it comes to lack of availability, because as we know, Nate Hobbs is banged up quite a bit and misses a lot of games. So obviously the Raiders have guys on the defensive side of the ball that do have interest from other teams. So, it's funny. So many years have gone by where the Raiders have guys that hit free agency and nobody picks them up, or they pick them up at the last second, right? They'll just sign them, a veteran minimum or whatever the case may be. They have guys that other teams around the league have some interest in. So that's also good. If you lose those guys, you do, they do factor into the compensatory pick as far as the formula goes. And so that's how you end up getting some extra picks. The really good teams always end up with compensatory picks each and every year. The Raiders have two of them this year. Seems like they might end up with more of them depending on who they lose in free agency and obviously based on who they sign as well. But look out for Merrick, Nate Hobbs, and also Robert Spillane having interest from other teams. How about this little nugget here in segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast? The Jets are taking calls on Davante Adams. Ian Rappaport from NFL Network said, sources, the Jets are now taking calls on star wide receiver Davante Adams, open to trading him prior to the start of the league year. No surprise with a $38.2 million cap number. If they can't get a deal, they're expected to release Adams, who could rejoin quarterback Aaron Rodgers with a new team. Wow. Wow. It's kind of wild how they got there already, right? Man, remember when Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams were going to take things over and the Jets were going to be fantastic, and Davante was pouting and Aaron Rodgers wanted his buddy back, and the Raiders were able to get a third-round pick out of it. And, some people looked at it and said, I wish the Raiders could have got more. They didn't do enough. Now the Jets are talking about potentially releasing Davante Adams, who's still a really good wide receiver, top 10 wide receiver in the league still, in my opinion. Really good guy. I've always respected him. I don't have any animosity towards him. He decided he didn't want to be with the Raiders, so, okay, he was out. He ended up teaming back up with his buddy that he had a lot of success with in Aaron Rodgers. And now, because of that $38.2 million cap hit, he's most likely going to be out of New York. So, wow, the way things have changed, right? And so, I think that the Raiders did a really good job at least getting a third-round pick out of him. And who knows where he ends up. The conversation was if Matt Stafford had chose the Giants or the Raiders to go to and be the quarterback there, that the Rams were going to turn their attention to Aaron Rodgers, and he was going to end up being their starting quarterback, and they were going to probably find a way to get Davante Adams back to L.A., to the Rams, back to the West Coast. But obviously that didn't happen as Stafford chose to stick with the Rams. So I don't know where Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing next year. I don't know where Davante Adams is going to be playing. But what I do know is the Raiders got a third-round pick after getting rid of their guy that did not want to be their guy anymore in Davante Adams. So who's going to be the guy throwing the ball to, well, Brock Bowers, one of the best tight ends in the league. Jacoby Myers, one of the most consistent wide receivers in the league. Potentially Big Mike. Big Mike's another little note coming out of the scouting combine that the Raiders are taking calls on Big Mike, so that's something to pay attention to. Michael Mayer could potentially be traded. I hate that for him. Never really got to see what he can do with the Raiders. His rookie year obviously was not very good. Josh McDaniels never really opened him up. And then last year, his first year post Josh McDaniels, he left the team after, week 3 and was gone for 8 or 9 weeks and didn't return for personal issues. So I'd hate to see that for him, not being able to show what he can do with the silver and black. But we all know what Brock Bowers could do. So maybe the Raiders are looking at it like, well, we can move on from him because we got Brock, and this is the direction that we're going. So don't be surprised if the Raiders end up moving on from Michael Mayer. That's another conversation that came out of the scouting combine. But no matter who's on the team receiving the ball, who's going to be throwing the ball? No Matt Stafford. We'll talk about who could be next. We'll do that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. We'll get to that as soon as I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. Even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to be on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I was checking out the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Portland Trailblazers game on Sunday. We had arrived here in Portland, getting ready for Little Q's senior night coming up on Monday night, and we were watching this game, and man, Portland took it down to the wire, forced overtime. What a really good game. Had an opportunity to win, weren't able to squeak it out. Cleveland continued what they've been doing all season long, but man, what a great game. That's one that you could have definitely had a little bit of something on, right? A little skin in the game on that one, and that would have really been a thriller down to the wire. Well, right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Talk about the big elephant in the room, which is the Raiders quarterback position. No Matt Stafford. So what's next? Spent all week in Indianapolis talking about Matt Stafford, and which is wild. I've been to a handful of these scouting combines, and never, ever has there been a veteran, a position player, quarterback or other, ever take over the headlines like Matt Stafford did. It didn't matter if you were a person there representing the Raiders, representing the Giants, representing the Browns, representing the Steelers. Like, it did not matter. Every single outlet, there was over 60-something outlets there at the scouting combine in Indianapolis. Every single one of them, the big name was Matt Stafford. It really took it till Friday when the quarterbacks talked to the media until really there was a buzz about anything else that was going on outside of Matt Stafford. And, of course, on Friday, conveniently, is when we all found out Matt Stafford and the Rams were going to remain together. They weren't going to split up. He wasn't going to go to the Giants, wasn't going to go to the Raiders. The Raiders apparently had conversations about compensation, pay for the contract, which is about $90 to $100 million guaranteed for Matt Stafford. But the compensation that they were going to have to give up for draft capital to the Rams is something that they weren't able to come in agreement with. Okay, no problem. Again, I'm not mad at it. I knew that Matt Stafford was good for a couple of years, but that was going to be a short-term fix. What is the long-term solution? That was always my big thing. And, I know that people thought that, okay, it makes them competitive right away. That's fine. But, again, what are they going to do with Matt Stafford, who, oh, by the way, has been injured quite a bit? When is he, when he's ready to hang it up, then what do you do? So for the Raiders, there's a couple reports coming out of the scouting combine that the Raiders have interest in Sam Darnold if the Vikings don't tag him, and it looks like that they won't. I know some people believe that they will, but it doesn't seem to me that they're going to tag him. And look, I'm not in on the Sam Darnold conversation, right? I understand he did it 1 year, it looked really good in Minnesota, but it was also 1 year in Minnesota. Really good head coach, really good wide receivers, really good offensive line, really good run game. The Raiders don't have all those elements in place, right? They have some elements, don't get me wrong. I don't trust the fact that he's only done it 1 year out of his whole career, been really good 1 year, and then when push came to shove, when it came to the games that they had to have, he really folded, wasn't able to get it. I mean, pressure came to him, and he looked like the old Sam Darnold that we remember when he was a member of the New York Jets. So I'm really out on Darnold, and the one caveat with that is if he's not able to generate the market that he thinks, which is probably about a 4-year, $160, $180 million deal, then maybe it's going to end up being a 1 to 2 year deal. Then maybe the conversation is different, right? If you're talking about a 2-year deal as a bridge quarterback, a true bridge quarterback, okay. But if you're talking in the $100-something plus million, like I said, a 4-year, $160, $180 million contract, I'm good. I just don't think that he's worth that money. I particularly think that the Raiders need to just go and do whatever it takes to go get their franchise quarterback, get him in the draft, and have a guy that you can rock with, a guy that could be your franchise quarterback. If you did your due diligence right, and he is that guy, you could have him potentially for the next 10 to 12 years, maybe even more than that. That's what I think needs to happen. So I understand that they're going to bring in competition. I understand that there's probably going to be a bridge guy in. Maybe that bridge guy is already there in Aiden O'Connell. I don't know. So as far as I'm concerned, you can get me Russell Wilson for a year or two. Fine. Reasonable price, no problem. You can get me Kirk Cousins, reasonable price for a year or two. Fine. No problem. I'm cool with that. Justin Fields, same thing. I don't care about any of these guys that are veterans. If they come very reasonable and they'll be a true bridge quarterback type guy, you can sign me up for that, because ultimately they need to go into the draft and get their guy. I'm very much in the camp of Shedeur Sanders. I think anyone who's listening to this show understands that. But we'll see what direction they go. Now, this is from Tristan Kuhn. He tweeted out the Raiders will host quarterbacks Cam Ward and Will Howard for top 30 visits following the combine, which, okay, that's good to know. Again, they're not leaving any stone unturned. I got sound from Jalen Milroe, Will Howard, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, got all of that at the scouting combine, so I could bring that to the table throughout the course of, the week of shows that we're doing. Also saw this tweet from Vic Tafur to Sean Reed. Even Tony Pauline put this one out there. The gap has widened between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. The sense among teams is that Sanders will be available when the Raiders are on the clock at pick number 6. And I'll tell you this, I'll just caution. There's so much lying going on. There's so much just words being spread for one reason or the other. Some teams will put that out and hope that someone, writes the story or puts out the tweet like that because they want Shedeur to drop or any other person to drop, right? I mean, this is what it is. It's really hard. You really got to decide what conversation is real and what conversation is just something to put, guys out there and believe, like Jackson Dart all of a sudden is, a guy who could potentially be the number 2 quarterback off the board. That's not going to happen. It's going to be Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, right? Jackson Dart will go off the board, most likely number 3, did a really good job of throwing the ball at the scouting combine over the weekend, where Will Howard didn't do a very good job. And, it's wild because everyone was really trashing Will Howard, and that's the reason why a lot of guys didn't want to compete. Guys like Cam Ward, and Shedeur Sanders, they didn't want to throw because the only thing they can do is not do well, right? Just like Will Howard threw the ball to a bunch of guys that he didn't know very well, and it didn't look very good. That doesn't mean Will Howard's not a really good quarterback. It just means he didn't have a really good day. So now all of a sudden these red flags are up there. So that's kind of the evidence of why a lot of these top guys did not compete, because they knew that the only thing that they could do was hurt their own stock. As much as I would have loved to see them go out there and compete and sling it and, just get after it and prove that they're number 1 guy. Again, it's a business decision. They know what they're doing, and they're trying to make sure that everything that they do is great, as opposed to, potentially could hurt them and could potentially red flag them. So as far as I'm concerned, the Raiders need to do whatever it takes, and it might mean move up from 6 to 2, 6 to 1, whatever. I'm fine with that. If you're comfortable taking a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders at 6, you should be comfortable taking a Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders at 1, in my opinion. I think both quarterbacks are really good. I think that both quarterbacks could help the Raiders out in a major way. Again, I'm team Shedeur Sanders. That's who I'd like to see the Raiders get, but that's just me, and we'll see what they want to do. But speaking of Shedeur, he spoke on Friday at the scouting combine, and he took extra time, right? They were trying to get him off the podium, and he kept answering questions. I just got a couple minutes of what Shedeur had to say, but I thought it was some really good stuff from the young quarterback from Colorado. Check it out.
How's everybody doing?
Good, yeah.
Doing well. Legendary.
Shedeur, a lot's been made of your relationship with Tom Brady over the years. What has that relationship meant to you, and how fired up would you be to reunite with him in Las Vegas with the Raiders?
Yeah, Tom Brady, he's an all-time great. Being able to have that resource, being able to have that person I'm able to talk to and call whenever I'm having questions about the game, and he's able to relate to it because he did it at the highest level, is truly amazing. I'm thankful for that.
What's the origin of your relationship with Tom? Did it come about through your dad or something?
Well, far back, I'll say a couple years ago, he extended his hand. He was like, come work out with me in Tampa. So we flew down there. Dad came and we rode with him. He took me in his truck to his field, to his high school field. Then from then on, he was just telling me knowledge, and I filmed everything. I recorded everything. So now, even sometimes I go back and just listen to the things that he said at that time, and it registers. You know, everything that he said back then registers now, and it applies. So that's what I'm thankful for.
What has Pat Shermer meant for your?
Pat Shermer, he's amazing. He's great. I'm truly thankful and glad that he was my last year offensive coordinator. I've been through 6 different OCs, you know, so I'm able to adjust to any offense and every scheme and make it work. We went from Jackson State to Colorado and changed 2 programs back to back. So you don't think I could come to an NFL franchise and change the program again? It's history. We done it again. It's always gonna repeat itself.
Sure, I know you're focused on football, but you also release music. When you join the NFL, can we expect more music from you?
See, like, I'm happy you asked that question. You gotta understand, when you get the work done, and that's why you drop the YouTube video Day in the Life. We work out, we eat, we watch film. After that, you got all these hours to yourself. So why would somebody criticize you for being at home and being able to express yourself the way you want to express yourself? Could be out being wild, doing all this type of stuff, driving as fast as you can on the road, doing anything wild. So it's like, if anything, I feel like some GMs, you know, they appreciate that you're in a controlled environment, able to just express yourself and chill. So I make it truly for fun. I don't make it to release. Like, if you get, I got an app that I send to all my friends. They probably got 20 songs on there, but it's just for, like, just to decompress. That's all it is.
With that being said, in regards to the music, you know, you said your mental process is so important, but people have criticized you. How important is that balance to keep your mental in check to be the best possible quarterback you can be?
No, it's extremely important to keep your mental in the best place, because that's what my game is played. My game's not played from my legs and not even just my arm. So I know longevity, the all-time greats, what's Tom Brady's best trait? His mental. He's able to think. So if you have those traits of greatness and I know where I'm heading, then why wouldn't the franchise pick me?
I thought that was really good stuff. It was only 3 minutes. And, again, he was at the podium for about 18 to 20 minutes. And usually they have a 12 to 15-minute window that they're up there. But he just kept answering questions. They were trying to get him off the podium. But I just think that he's got it. He's got it to be a franchise leader. He's got it to be the face of the franchise. He's got it to be able to stand up in front of the media and answer every single question, put on a big smile. He's got it to be the guy underneath the big lights. I mean, and lead a franchise. Like he mentioned, I've done this before, right? We led Jackson State. We led Colorado, and nobody was pounding the table saying, hey, man, on Saturday, Jackson State's playing. You want to get together and watch the game? Or, hey, man, on Saturday, Colorado's playing. You want to get together and watch the game? No. But when Dion, when Shador, when Travis Hunter, when they were there, that's exactly what we did. So he's spot on, right? And he can help do that. And I do believe, and I've said it many times, I think the factor that he can help put butts in the seats that are representing the Raiders is a big factor as well. And that's something that the Silver and Black needs desperately in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. So, again, just wanted to go ahead and pass that along. Now that the Raiders didn't get Matt Stafford, I say pass on Sam Darnold. If you have to bring in a guy that's a veteran, fine. Bring him in to something minimal and do everything it takes. Everything. I don't care what it is. Exhaust every effort to go get your quarterback of the future, whether that's Cam Ward or Shador Sanders. That's where it ends. One of those two guys, do what it takes if you're the Silver and Black. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts are next. 707-654-4693. Segment number 3 of the Locked On Raiders podcast comes up. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a call from the 910. Didn't get a name, but got the area code, 910. Who's calling to talk about the quarterback position, which is obviously the big domino and the big elephant in the room. Somehow, some way, he says the Raiders got to figure out what they want to do at that position. Here he is, call from the 910.
Hey, Q. Hey, Ari. Happy March, fellas. This is International Women's Month, and it's my birthday month. So it's my favorite month of the whole entire year. October is my second favorite month because football is going down, but, you know, March is pretty awesome. Anyways, I digress. fellas, Matthew Stafford signed over the weekend, and I was kind of like low-key hoping we would get him, but, alas, that ain't going to happen. And, Sam Darnold got the tag. And I hear a lot of YouTube people saying, oh, we're going to trade for Sam Darnold. We should give up one of our third-round picks for Sam Darnold. And to be honest with you, I'm not loving that. I'm not liking that at all, Raider Nation. I'm just going to tell you, if we're going to trade with Minnesota, let's do it right. Let's trade for J.J. McCarthy. I like that kid. He's a winner. So, Q, Ari, I don't know what you guys think about it, but not Sam Darnold. If we're going to do a trade, let's do it for J.J. And you know what? I have an idea. We'll trade the 6th with Minnesota's first, so we'll get the 6th overall, and we'll get their first round, and then we give them our second, and we get J.J. McCarthy. Would that be feasible? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. I think that would do, and I'd be cool with that. All right, later, fellas. Hey, Raider Nation, just win, baby.
Thank you for the call. Appreciate you. Next time you hit us back, make sure you let us know your name. But the thing I learned the week of the Super Bowl is that the Vikings are very excited and pumped up about what they have in J.J. McCarthy. They're not trading him. I know that was a conversation that was out there. That's not happening. They're going to watch Darnold walk before they trade McCarthy. As a matter of fact, I caught up with Kevin O'Connell the week of the Super Bowl, as I mentioned, in New Orleans when I was doing my ESPN radio show. I was actually filling in on Greeny. It was me and Hembo, and I asked Kevin O'Connell about the quarterback room in Minnesota and the fact that Sam Darnold has so much success, but yet they drafted J.J. McCarthy, in the first round, and he was sitting behind Darnold and then was injured. So what do they do moving forward? Here is the reigning coach of the year, Kevin O'Connell, speaking on that quarterback room.
There was an organizational plan in place where we wanted to have a guy that we thought we could win football games with while still attempting to draft our quarterback of the future. And to be sitting here today, Sam Darnold, 14 wins later, his best season of his career by far. He deserves all the credit for that. We had belief in him, and he earned it with his teammates on a daily basis. But then also to have J.J. McCarthy, now healthy, going to have a full offseason. I think it's going to be really exciting. We'll see how the free agency process works out for Sam. We also had Daniel Jones late in the year come to our quarterback room. So for a quarterback guy to be able to go in there every day when they're in their meetings and see Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, and J.J. McCarthy all doing football with Josh McCown in that quarterback room, it makes you feel pretty good.
So doesn't sound to me like they have any interest there to move on from J.J. McCarthy. Sam Darnold, cool, right? They'll see how his free agency goes. I wouldn't be surprised to see Sam Darnold return to Minnesota as well, unless unless there's some team out there that's willing to pay him a lot of money. I still think that's the best place for him, somewhere he knows, somewhere they know him, right? I know they have Daniel Jones in the mix as well as Kevin O'Connell mentioned, but I don't see them moving on from J.J. McCarthy at all. But thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Jeff in South Carolina. It said, good morning, Q. I was thinking about some of the veteran options we might go after in free agency. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on Justin Fields as a potential fit with Carroll and Kelly's system. I know we don't know exactly what they're going to roll out, but a very mobile quarterback seems to be a non-negotiable. Having watched firsthand what a train wreck Getsy's system is makes me wonder about the actual potential of Fields. He did pretty well at the Steelers in the limited time he started there. Maybe an excellent vet option that may well have his best years under OC that's worth his salt. Talking about Chip Kelly. My mind keeps coming back to Russ in his younger years being a very mobile dude that Carroll built around a greater success. I'm guessing we can get him for a great prove-it contract price. Thanks again for keeping the nation very well informed. Jeff from South Carolina, thanks for the text. I do appreciate you. And, yeah, Justin Fields is definitely a guy that I would have interest in. I think that he could be a guy on a 1 or 2 year deal. His athleticism you talked about. I don't trust his arm very much. Sounds like he's going to be interested, or the Steelers are interested in bringing him back. Sound like the Jets are interested in signing him. So he's going to have a few suitors, but he very well could end up with the silver and black. But I would probably think that more chances are not that he'll be back at Pittsburgh. It might end up being Russell Wilson that is with the Raiders. The one thing, speaking of non-negotiables, the one thing that Chip Kelly needs for his offense to go is not necessarily a quarterback that can run, but he has to have a running game. So the running backs, we saw them on display this weekend. Man, they can go. The running back class not only is deep, but, man, they're fast. A lot of fast running backs in this upcoming draft class. So I think that the Raiders could definitely get their running back that they need, and they don't necessarily need to have a running quarterback. So we'll see. But I wouldn't be opposed to Justin Fields. That's for sure. Thanks so much for that text. I appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Lodi Raider. He's calling to talk about the Raiders' wants and what they get and why it's not a bad thing. Here he is, Lodi Raider.
What up, Q? Lodi Raider out here. Wanted to make a little statement and then get your feedback on it. You know, we've been through this, right? As Raider fans, you know, we want the big home run, and then we get what we consider to be second best. You know, we wanted Ben Johnson, and then we settled for Pete Carroll. Well, settling for Pete Carroll might not be a bad thing, right? We wanted Matthew Stafford, but we might settle for the likes of Sam Darnold or even Russell Wilson, who was third in passer rating last year in the NFL. And that might not be a bad thing for us. You know, the truth of it is that we need a franchise quarterback. And until we find him, we got to continue to build everything around him. A stout defense, a stout running game, and then find that guy. You know, it is going to be a hit or miss for a while. And hopefully they find something, you know, out of nowhere. You know, your thoughts on that, Q? We appreciate you going out there to the combine, checking everything out. We appreciate all your feedback. Let me know your thoughts. Lodi Raider out.
Thank you for the call, my man. And what I think we have learned is that this Raiders ownership, front office, coaching staff, they plan to be aggressive. And that, to me, is a good thing, right? It would be bad business not to explore every option or possibility out there and just settle and say, well, you know, this Ben Johnson's not going to consider us, or Matt Stafford's not going to consider us, or insert whatever you want is not going to, you know, like you should have the confidence that whatever you want, you can go get. And I'm not saying you're going to go get everything, but you should be able to throw your name in the hat and say, hey, we're real players and we should be under consideration for this. And that's what they're proving that they should do. I'm out on Sam Darnold. I don't want him unless it's a very reasonable 1 to 2 year deal. I just want the Raiders to go draft their own guy, get their franchise guy. I prefer Shedeur Sanders, but if you end up with Cam Ward, that's not a bad thing either. I think those are the two guys that you're targeting. Those are the two guys that you're looking at, and you feel really good if you could come away with one of those guys. So thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Raider Murray. So what's up, Q? It's Raider Murray here. Usually late for these. Listen on the podcast. You ask for a couple guys, but when it's all said and done, we have to trade up. Send 6. Send next year's first and third from the Jets, then go get our guy. If we bring in a vet, there's only 2 real options and only one that makes sense that you're not going to like. Is Derek Carr. If he's released, he's a solid starter and best we can go get for low money. But if we trade up to 1, get whoever, Cam or Sanders, sorry to Brady, but we have to start them anyway. Let's go Raiders. Let's just make a move and do what we have to do. P.S. Keep doing what you're doing. Huge fan. That's Raider Murray. So basically what he's saying is, what do they do at the quarterback position? Okay, really good text. Appreciate that. I'm with you. Just do what it takes to go get your guy. If you believe in as the front office, coaching staff, whatever the case may be, that one of those 2 guys can be your franchise quarterback for a long time coming, go get him. And I don't care what it takes. If you got to trade up to number 2 with Cleveland, go trade up. I don't really care what the draft capital is. Just do it, right? It'll obviously be a pick swap of this year's ones. It'll be next year's ones or next year's one, and then a little bit of sugar on top. That's fine. I'm good with that. It's not going to cost them as much as, say, 13 to 2, right? 6 to 2, I'm good with. Just go do it. I'm fine with it. Whatever veteran quarterback you got to bring in as a bridge if you want, that's fine. The thing with Stafford is, if they had brought in Stafford, 1, there would be no competition like Pete Carroll loves. He loves to have competition at all positions. There would have been no competition. Matt Stafford would have been the starting quarterback. And 2, you sure weren't going to get Shedeur. You know, some people say, well, just trade for Stafford and draft Shedeur too. Shedeur, you can't have him sit behind Stafford because that's a real deal plan to sit for a long time. And then what? Every single game, the camera would have been on Shedeur. When is it going to be Shedeur time? When is it going to be Shedeur time? Anytime Stafford throws the interception, oh, maybe they should get Shedeur in. Anytime he has a bad game, oh, they should get Shedeur in. Like, that just would have been a bad recipe. So, you know, I'm not going to say it's a blessing in disguise that they didn't get Matt Stafford because, again, he did bring some credibility and he brought a sense of I'm a winner to the table immediately. But there are some downfalls for sure. And the biggest one is the fact that he would have been a short-term solution, not a long-term answer. So thanks so much for that text. I appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Barry in Baltimore, calling to talk about the Raiders not landing Stafford and what he prefers. Here he is, Barry from Baltimore.
What up, Q? This is Barry from Baltimore. Just wanted to call in regards to this past week and wanted to thank you for all the info and content you brought to the Raider Nation while you were there in Indianapolis for the Combine. So Definitely appreciate that. A couple quick things regarding the Stafford deal. I mean, I would have been fine if they got him. I just didn't want them to give up too much, which it could have been a couple seconds maybe if that was, the thing that Vinny mentioned. I don't know, man. I would just prefer to keep those picks if it's involved in trading for an older veteran quarterback like a Stafford, or even like with the rumors of supposedly, Minnesota might tag Darnold and then the Raiders might trade for him, which I just think that would be horrible. I mean, you got to trade for him and then pay him. I just don't think it's worth it. Now, if I'm going to give up picks, I'm with you, man. I'd go up and get my guy. Like, if they like Cam Ward or Shador, whoever, man, it's just, I don't know. I just want the Raiders to finally get their young franchise quarterback on a rookie deal where they can build around. I get some of the stopgap stuff. Obviously they're still going to bring a veteran in, but it's going to go on 3 years in a row where we were like told Jimmy G, he's the answer. He's QB1. And then last year Minshew. It's like it's just hard to deal with another year. I'm hoping with this new regime they're going to think differently. Obviously I know a veteran quarterback's going to come in. So I'm fine with that. Maybe if they have to start a couple games, but man, I just want them to get their guy, in the draft. And if it's not this year, then, possibly next year. But the thing with next year is too, like we all expect with this new regime and Pete Carroll and, same defense, Chip Kelly offense. If they win a couple more games, and then next year is the year for the quarterback, then that's even more they're giving up to get up there and get their guy. But that's why they make the big bucks to make those decisions. But it's just my feeling, this whole quarterback situation. I personally would love to bring in Fields, a cheap little deal, let him play a little bit, see what Chip Kelly can do with him. Still draft a quarterback. Obviously if you're not trading all the way up, or if you're getting one, maybe second round, third round. But it's going to be interesting. It's about to start, so can't wait to see. I just hope this team get better and finally get their quarterback, to move forward with, and we don't have to keep hearing, they don't have a quarterback. Anyways, I'm out. Go Raiders.
Thanks so much, Barry. Appreciate the call. And I'm not really upset that they didn't land Stafford, right? I wanted them to get their guy, their long-term solutions. No, not Stafford, not Darnold. Just get your guy, right? So I know that, again, it made sense to go after Stafford, but there was a part of me, and if you listened to the show last week when the whole conversation at the Combine was about Stafford, I was very hesitant to be like, yes, that's the guy. Go get him. I wasn't pounding the table saying go get him. I'm pounding the table saying go get Shador. That's who I think that they need to get for many different reasons. If you get Cam Ward, that's fine too, right? He's a really good quarterback, but I would like to see Shador above anybody. That's who I think that they should go get. That's the guy that I think could lead this franchise for a very long time. But that's just me. So, Barry, thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. We'll close out with a text from Fitzy in New Hampshire saying, hey, Q, just want to shout out Jacoby Myers. Hopefully he stays with the Raiders for a little while longer. Led the entire league with a 0.0 drop rate percentage last year. That's all you can ask from a wide receiver. No matter what offensive system he's in and who's throwing it to him, have to hold on to guys like him. Keep on keeping on, Q. It's Fitzy from New Hampshire. Thanks for the text. I appreciate you. And it's funny, man, that goes back to training camp when I remember asking him specifically, how do you adjust as a wide receiver when there's a quarterback competition? You're catching passes from Aiden O'Connell. You're catching passes from Gardner Minshew. He said, it doesn't matter. The ball's in the air, just go catch it. If the ball's in the air, it doesn't matter who's throwing it. Just go catch the ball. That's what we do. And with that, 0.0% drop rate in 2024, that's all he did is when he caught the ball no matter who was throwing him the rock. He had Aiden O'Connell. He had Gardner Minshew. He had Desmond Ridder. I mean, he had a carousel of quarterbacks throwing on the ball, and he still found a way to get it done and not put anything on the ground. So really good text. I appreciate you, and definitely want to shout out Jacoby Myers because he's doing big things and should be a member of the Silver and Black for the long term. I'm telling you, the Patriots are still sick that they let him walk, and they brought in Juju Smith-Schuster, who's not even on the team anymore, gave him money that they could have gave Jacoby, and he could have stuck around. But I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad he's a member of the Silver and Black. That's going to do it for today's show. Again, here in Portland, Oregon. Should have one more show from Portland. Monday night is going to do Little Q Senior Night, Portland State. They're taking on Sacramento State, so we got some family and friends here. Looking forward to checking that game out. Looking forward to walking out with them on Senior Night. This is something obviously I've never experienced in my life, so I think this will be a lot of fun. But more importantly, I'm excited for him and the opportunity that he's got. So we'll be back in Studio Q. Oh, what, Wednesday? Yeah, I guess Wednesday, yeah, because we fly out on Tuesday. So we're back in Studio Q on Wednesday, but right now we're here in Portland. So until then, until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.